Hi, Cherry. I have to say it's a real honor to have you on the show, first of all.
It's an honor to be on your show.
And you said you're in Palm Springs. It must be really nice out there right now.
It's beautiful. It's so blessed. I moved here, believe it or not, in 2014 for cheaper rent. You move to the most beautiful resort town with the mountains, with the snow on top, and for cheaper rent, it doesn't seem, but it's the way it was in 2014. I'm so glad I moved out here. I mean,
I
when you're older, for me anyway, I don't need the big city anymore, you know?
right. I lived in LA in the 80s and the 90s, and I'm back. I'm in the Boston area now, and I still miss California. I was out there last year, and I'm like, why
I
did I
know.
ever leave? You know?
I never go to LA anymore either. It's no, when you're a certain age, a smaller city is kind of better, a little community, you know.
Right.
And this place is so beautiful. Oh my God. We went to the Annenberg Center the other day. It's called Sunnylands. And the Obamas visited often. He played golf there. And there's pictures of him. So beautiful, and it's free. I mean, there's a lot of very wealthy older people out here, and they're very into backing the arts and the hospitals and all that kind of stuff, you know.
That's
So
a good thing.
yeah, it's a good thing to do with the money, you know.
Do you mind if we go all the way back, like way back?
No, go ahead.
I know you were born in Queens. I was going to ask you what your childhood was and what you remember of your early childhood living in Queens.
Yeah, I thought we were middle class, but we were really actually poor. We were kind of lower class, and my father always had steady jobs. One for many years with the sanitation department of New York City. He drove the borough superintendent of Queens. He drove him, and my father was very proud of his driving record and his cars, and you know. And my mother was a telephone operator at the Hotel 14 Copacabana situation. And so even though we were like living in a railroad flat in Woodside and pretty poor, you know, we always had, to me, we always had food and fun and a place to go in the summertime. And I think I lived a very rich childhood in a way. And I was a bit of a loner. I'd like to go off when I finally got exposed to the woods, because I grew up in Queens, which was city. When I finally went up to Sinita Hills and Lake Carmel, upstate New York, I used to love to just go walking in the woods by myself, you know. And so I had a happy childhood, very Catholic. But at the same time, I mean, my mother made novenas, but she also read tea leaves, you know. She was a little witchy.
Right.
And then being able to go to the Copacabana and seeing, you know, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis on stage, and the band and the Copa Girls, and oh my God, that was another whole world. And once I saw it and got a little taste of it, I wanted that beyond Queens, you know. I wanted the Manhattan
Hmm.
life, you know.
Did you start listening to a lot of different kinds of music at a young age?
Did I start listening to what?
A lot of different types of music when you were younger?
Yes, yes, I did. I had a Hawaiian fantasy in my childhood. I don't know why. It was the only consistent lie I ever told, but I used to tell all my little schoolmates and everything that my father was in the service and I was born in Hawaii. I had never been to Hawaii, but it's Hawaiian fantasy. So I listened to a lot of Hawaiian music, Sweet Leilani, and When Johnny Brings Leilani Home, and all. But that was stuff was kind of on the radio in those days, mixed in with, you know, Tony Bennett and other entertainers, even Elvis. And so the radio was my source of music
Hmm.
until in the 50s somewhere. I don't know, could have been like 1950. My brother brought home a little RCA 45 record player that attached to the TV, and first kind of 45s. And then I started being able to collect 45s and stuff like that. But we also had WWRL, which was a Black radio station, Black personnel, Black music, in the middle of a very white Woodside, Queens. At the time, it was probably German and Irish mostly. And that was always so strange to me, but yet we got great reception at that station. It was only a few blocks away. And then I used to love riding in the car with my father, and because he was such a good driver. Nobody's ever been as good since, you know. And right. And we used to listen to the Make Believe Ballroom, like it was ABC was AM radio then still, and it was a mixture of different kind of pop tunes. Hey Kumbade, how much is that doggy in the window, you know. And then Elvis hit, and it was like Heartbreak Hotel, and oh my God, what? So yeah, it was mostly the radio, and then collecting 45s, and then carrying around your big ghetto blaster was a thing from my era. So you could play cassette tapes or the radio. And that's how the music came to me. You know, someone asked me what was the first concert I went to, and I don't really remember. I remember the first Broadway play was The Bells Are Ringing. I think it was with Judy Holliday or something, Holiday. But I can't remember what was the first concert. I don't know why. But, you know, it just progressed from there. I sought out the music I liked, and I liked music in all genres, you know.
When did you decide to move to Manhattan? And I think you soon became a DJ after that.
Okay. I was living with my parents in Queens, technically until I was 21. But I had friends with apartments in one boyfriend in particular in Manhattan. And I used to lie to my parents and say I was staying with a girlfriend, but I was really staying with him. And I didn't officially move out of there till my 21st birthday. I moved out of Queens on my 21st birthday. So I was leading a kind of double life. You know, my parents didn't know too much about all of the acid trips I was taking and all that kind of stuff, and going to Fire Island. But I officially moved into Manhattan on my 21st birthday. I lived at 250 Riverside Drive over the Hudson River.
West Side, right.
97th Street and Riverside Drive. Had a view. My bedroom had a view of the river and the boats going by. And I moved in there with two roommates, two girls I knew, sisters. And that was my very first away from Queens. And then it was always Manhattan. I strove to be by myself after that. I didn't want roommates. So I lived in a lot of studios and small apartments and stuff like that. And up and down, you know, money sometimes, no money sometimes, you know, big apartment, posh sometimes, you know, a couch to sleep on other times in somebody else's apartment. So it was an up and down thing, but, you know, you remember it all now as so romantic, you know.
Right.
Artists, you know. Yeah.
And when DJing was your first introduction to like working in the entertainment, correct?
Well, yeah, advertising was kind of like entertainment. I mean, I was producing radio and TV commercials, jingles and stuff like that. It was a little bit like showbiz, but it was advertising. And then when I started DJing at Opus on the weekends and sometimes during the week at night, that's when I got really, really into the music. Yeah. And then that introduced me to a crowd of people who were doing underground theater in the Lower East Side. And once I hooked up with those people and did underground theater, they hooked me up with Max's Kansas City and CBGB's and the rock, you know, of the rock and roll. And I just, you know, devoured it. I just devoured it. And, you know, one thing led to another. Because of being an actress in the Warhol play in London, I got to meet David Bowie. Because of meeting David Bowie, I got to do his PR. Because of doing his PR, I got to go out there and do it myself, see what it was like to be in front of a band.
Can I take a step back for a second? Because I want to ask you how you first got on Andy Warhol's radar. How did that happen?
Well, I was doing these underground plays with Tony Zanetta and Lee Black Childers, Tony and Gracia directing in the Lower East Side. We made $4 a weekend if we were lucky, you know, but we loved it. It was communal kind of theater, and everybody was such a creative artist, but just poor and not famous. And so Andy Warhol came to see a show I was in, written by Jane County, who was then Wayne County.
Yeah.
Called World, The Birth of a Nation. And I had 2 lines in that play. And Andy Warhol wasn't fond of the actress that was playing the lead in Pork, his play in New York. So he wanted someone to replace her. And he remembered me from my 2 lines in World and gave me an audition at the factory. And I went to meet him at the factory with Tony and Gracia, the director. And we talked about advertising, because I was still in advertising in the daytime. And talked about the Catholic Church and Catholic school, because he was very Catholic. And Tony and Gracia asked him, would he like us to do a little scene or have me read something from the play? And he said, no, but do you know a hymn from Catholic school? So I remembered Dear Lady of Fatima, singing it a cappella and probably so off key. And I sang it for him, and he goes, okay, I think she'd be good, Tony. And
Wow.
So he didn't want the woman. Her name was Cleve Roller. She was playing the part of Pork in New York before I joined for the London cast. And she was an accomplished Broadway actress, sort of accomplished. She was still very young. And he didn't want that. He wanted more imperfection, Andy. He wanted more humanness. That's why he had his own brand of stable of stars, Holly Woodlawn and Candy Darling, because he wanted realism and imperfection rather than a Broadway kind of training. So yeah, that's how I got that. Yeah.
That's one of the beautiful things about Andy Warhol. Did you ever meet, like, we probably talk about Lou Reed in a few minutes because him and David Bowie are so connected, but did you ever meet Velvet Underground or Lou Reed and those people?
Yeah, I did. I never spent much time with any of them. I wrote a poem early on, and in the title was something like, I don't know, the Beatles, the devil, God, Lou Reed, and me. With a whole bunch of names in the title. And because of that, he got in his head that I was some kind of witch.
Lou did?
Yeah, because of that poem. And he couldn't get it out of his head about me. And so he steered clear of me all the time. And so I didn't really bother to pursue him either. And then when he first got close with Bowie, there was one morning, it must have been 6 a.m. or something. It was like sunrise on a Sunday morning. I was on the Upper East Side and I ran into David Bowie. We were both coming home from our all-nighters, you know, on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And Bowie was like, he had just spent the night with Lou. And he was like, Cherry, he's the devil, he's the devil. Now I'm getting from Bowie that Lou's the devil. Lou thinks I'm the devil. They had this devil consciousness then. And David thought girls were trying to make a devil baby and, you know, all kinds of things. Anyway, that was their consciousness at the moment. So I thought David was steering clear of him, but no, David got closer with him and they wound up hanging out a lot together. And then when I was friends with Rufus Wainwright, years later, and Rufus is a friend of Lou's, and they did some shows together, rehearsals and things, I was there. And I just laid back and he laid back and just nodded to each other, and that was it. Because I was like, if he thinks I'm a witch, I'm not gonna, go get
That's
scary
funny.
him.
Um,
Anyway,
in 1971, you went to England to perform in Pork, and I know that's when you met David Bowie. Do you remember the circumstances of when you first met? Did Angie have something to do with that also?
no, Lee Childers knew about David from posters that had been spread around the United States. He came a few years earlier, or a year earlier, to do a radio promo tour, no performance because he didn't have a work permit, but just to go to certain radio stations with the guy from RCA. There's actually been a little movie made about it, I saw, and just promote him. And I didn't know about him, but Lee Childers, who was the stage manager of Pork in London and who became Bowie's sort of official photographer along with Mick Rock, he knew of him, and he knew about, I don't know if that poster or just there was a photo in Rolling Stone, and David was in a dress, in the Mr. Fish dress. And so Lee remembered that, and we were on our way to rehearsal up at the Roundhouse Theatre in London for Pork. And Lee, I guess we saw a poster for Bowie performing at the Country Club, a little club at the outskirts of London. And Lee said, "Oh, we have to go to this. I've read about him, and we have to go. He's going to be amazing." So it was Lee Childers. So we called the record companies. In those days, we both did writing and photography for some rock magazines, Lee Childers and I did. So whether we actually were on official business for the magazine or not, we always said we're from, Circus, Cream, Hit Parade, or whatever. And the record companies were so polite over there in those days. They would send a car for us, most of them.
Really? Wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they had money and they were polite. And if a journalist, we were Warhol people there. They knew about that from the press we were getting. So they probably thought it was worth it to make the connection with people like us for New York and the States and all. So they were very, very generous and kind to us. And also in those days, you could pull the wool over people's eyes. I remember all we had to do to go to a Fabulous concert back in the 60s and 70s was rent a limo for $35 an hour, which is what they cost in those days. And if you pulled up in a limo, you just went right in, the photographers snapping. The world was still kind of naive,
Wow.
And, then it got to be velvet ropes and lists and IDs and all that. So, yeah. So, how did I meet him? I met him going to the Country Club, and we met Angie right away. She was doing lights and sound, and she said, "Oh, stick around and meet David after. He's gonna love meeting you and all." And then during the show, he did the song Andy Warhol that he wrote for Dana Gillespie, and asked us to stand up and take a bow because Angie had told him we were in the audience. So Jane County and Lee and I stood up and took a bow. And in the play, I had to do this gesture that Bridget Polk, i.e. Pork, did all the time at the factory, and that was pop out one tit and say, and make a kind of, she used to shoot herself up with speed right through her jeans and call it Vitamita Vegemin, which is what Lucille Ball called it on I Love Lucy. And so I did that. I popped a tit and in this club, and then afterwards, after the gig, we went backstage with Angie, and we hung out with Rick Wakeman and him and Mick Ronson, and we went to Yours and Mine or Sombrero, this discotheque that was sometimes gay, sometimes straight, and we hung out dancing and drinking, and then from there we just kind of formed a friendship. I didn't see them that many times, but we would go out to their place in Beckenham, Kent, and have tea on a Sunday afternoon.
Because you were there for like a month, right?
Yeah, we were at the Roundhouse. We were planning to go to the West. We were there for a few months counting rehearsal time, which is when we met him and Angie during rehearsal time. And then for the play, we were there. It lasted a month, and we thought we were going to the West End after that, but we never got to the West End because the reviews were terrible, and the audiences were, packed at the beginning because we were shocking, and which wouldn't seem shocking today at all.
I have to ask you. You mentioned Rick Wakeman and Mick Ronson. Was that the band that he had at that time? It was just the three of them, because I heard they did a trio, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Rick Wakeman was on an acoustic piano. Mick Ronson was on an electric guitar, and David was on an acoustic guitar.
No drums.
No drums.
Wow.
And they had just started including some material from Ziggy Stardust. They had already recorded Hunky Dory. And I'm not sure if that was released. I don't think it was released yet. I'm not sure about that. But they were still working on Ziggy Stardust. And they were just trying out material live,
So after you came back, I got the story a little bit here. Man Made Limited was representing Bowie, and they somehow asked you to get involved as a publicist.
MainMan, yeah,
MainMan. What did I say, man? Sorry, MainMan.
MainMan. Well, there was Lee and Tony Zanetta, and me, basically at the core. We were the ones who made friends with Tony DeFries and the Bowies during our London stay. And when Tony DeFries said, I think it was September 72, he was bringing Bowie and the Spiders over and booking some dates in the States, he needed to get an office together in New York. He needed everything. He needed typewriters and telephones and telex machines and charge accounts at the dry cleaner and food delivery and electricity hooked up. And Tony Zanetta and Lee Childers, he was already hiring them. Tony to be the president of MainMan, the functioning office president, and Lee to be Bowie's official photographer and also road manager. And Tony Zanetta was also road manager. He needed somebody to set up the office, take care of all the phone calls, take care of the press, take care of whatever. And I was the only one of the three of us who had, well, first of all, very strict Catholic business high school. I had all the business courses. I knew how to run all the machines and type letters and type and all that. And I knew how to set up an office, and I knew how to talk to people about something I liked. So at the beginning, I was the everything girl. I was the office girl in New York. I did everything. And as we progressed, it more and more fell to me to do the PR, because I was the one and it's funny because nowadays you'd have the web and Wikipedia and all that. We didn't have that. And we didn't have time to go to the library and look at the microfiche, which would mostly be in London about him anyway. So I knew very little about him, really, I just knew that he was genius, he was a star, you didn't have to know much to know that. And that he was a great guy. He was great. He was great to work for. Fun, smart, sexy. He was a great guy. So that's how I went up the ladder to sort of being the mouth, the PR lady. And it happened fast.
I saw an interview that you did. I think it was like to work on interviewing skills or something. It was fantastic. You were interviewing David. It was just you and him. So I found it on YouTube, and I was blown away by that.
Is it very childish? I ask, "What's your favorite color?" And just
yeah, it was great.
It's so funny how things after time. I was so embarrassed about that for years because I didn't know yet how to do interviews. I hadn't written articles and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the pieces I wrote for Cream and Circus and all that were, basically my opinion and my experience, or sometimes a record review or a show review. So press releases and stuff, so I asked him one day because, we had to, it was my idea to put out a little in those days, 1/4-inch tape, send it to like all the rock radio stations across the country with a little already made interview that they could play because they were getting it for free, and we injected a little of his music and they could do that and stuff. And so, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I asked him silly, childish questions like in teenage magazines. And he was so brilliant already. He was so beyond those teenage questions. What's your favorite color? Did you ever see an alien? Anyway, all these years later, the innocence of that turns out to be something very sweet because you can tell in the interview, I'm attracted to him. He's attracted to me. I'm shy and nervous. He's shy and nervous. We're kind of giggling our way through it. And it's charming and endearing. So if you wait long enough, I'm like that with my own music. I couldn't listen to my own RCA recordings for a long time. I just thought I was not the recordings were great punk rock pop. I'm sorry if that's my phone. I don't know how to shut that one off.
That's okay.
But anyway, what was I going to say that took me away? But now, like all these years later, I can listen and go, well, that's not so bad. I wasn't so off key, just a little. And if we had auto tune, we would have fixed that, But it's funny over the years. And when I went to see Moon Age Daydream, have you seen it?
Oh, fantastic.
Isn't it? I'm so glad you think so. I think so too. So first I saw it in IMAX.
Me too. Amazing. Amazing.
Dazzling. And then I saw it at home on HBO and I got something even deeper out of it, But there's two little places where he used my question and answer from that interview that you're talking about.
Really?
Quite near the beginning and one is further into the film. Yeah, just two little questions I forgot. And you hear my little voice. And they had asked me and they had given me a little credit at the end and everything. But I wasn't sure they were ever using that. So when I first saw it in the IMAX theater, I was like, and my friends looked at me like, that's you, so I have my little moment in Moon Age Daydream. I love that director.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
That's in the picture and the Kurt Cobain one. I love it.
This is a good segue. I know it's pretty factual that you became intimate with David. Could you talk about that a little bit? What was that like? You guys became
You're so polite. You became intimate. Yes, I slept with him. Yes. That was a dream come true, I mean.
It would be for any of us, probably,
It would be for any of us. And first of all, when you are devoting your life 24/7, as it were in those days, to something you believe in so strongly, you kind of have to be a bit in love with the person,
Oh, I know. Yeah.
We were all in love with him. So it wasn't just the sex. It was like, finally we could give ourselves to him, body and soul, and show him how much we love him, So, and it was also kind of funny because I tell the story in my book that I had these bandages on my legs and stuff. So it was kind of a funny thing because he promised me he wouldn't laugh. And then right away when he saw me naked, he laughed, that's not good for confidence. But it was a dream come true. And then 2 more times I had one quickie and one nice little one at my apartment with him after that. Were both fun. We loved each other, we loved each other, not in a boyfriend girlfriend way, but we could, in those days, you had fuck buddies anyway.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to be in, but being in love with was nice part of it, So that was a dream come true. That was lovely. And he was such a good lover. He was such a gentleman and so attentive. And like when you had David's attention, you had David's attention. He made you feel that, even if it was just talking about something. He made you feel like he wasn't thinking about anybody or anything else in the room at that moment but you and what you had to say. And was nice. It was a nice quality.
Wow, it's so exciting to talk to someone that had a real close relationship with it. I'm a big fan, of course, obviously. If you're a fan of rock and roll, I mean, how could you can't ignore David Bowie. You just can't. Um, Eventually you guys stopped working together. Was that a difficult split for you when you moved on from that?
Yeah. What happened was I had branched off and had like my own little film division, which Tony DeFries got tired of funding, even though we were doing things for so little money that he should have shot all he could shoot, because he would have had all that software now. And that's what I was trying to tell him. Look, we're shooting 16 millimeter. It was a new film stock just introduced that blew up beautifully to 35 millimeter. And we're shooting things we're renting the film equipment on the Friday night, returning it on Monday. So we got the whole weekend to shoot for one day's rental. And, we knew all the tricks from Madison Avenue and from making underground movies on the weekends while we were producers on Madison Avenue. So it's a shame that Tony, he just didn't, he was spreading the funds too far, he thought. So he closed my little film division. And by that time, I wasn't going to go back. They had hired all kinds of new people, and they had moved to Park Avenue, MainMan, and it was different. There was no way I could go back. It was a different place, and a different time. Bowie was on his way.
Yeah.
He's made his mark in a way. I mean, he got popular because of publicity first. He didn't really just have a #1 till much later, or make a lot of money till much later. But he was popular. People knew about him. He was all over the media. And that's a lot had to do with my naivete about the media, because I made mistakes that turned out to be blessings, because I broke rules that you didn't break, but I broke them because I didn't know I was breaking them. So that was all kind of amazing. All the men, I guess they've all been men in a way, that I've been involved with, like Andy Warhol and David Bowie and Vangelis and Tim Burton and Sting. I wonder, like, I look in the mirror sometimes and go, who are you? Who are you? Like, how did I attract these intense artists into my life? And the fact that when you hear people talk about, I'm not bullshitting anybody when I say they were all kind of great people to work for. And when you're talking to somebody who's talking about former employers or partners, business, it's not always happy endings,
Right.
So
Right.
was it hard for me to leave that comfortable MainMan situation and figure out how I was going to live from there? Yes. But it did push me on. And I can be a little lazy. So I find that in life, it's kind of always that way with me. When I need a roof over my head or food, or I have to figure out some way to earn it,
Yeah. Before we talk about your music career, because that's where I was going next, I was curious, did you ever get together with Bowie and Warhol together? Did that ever happen?
I can remember maybe 3 times at most that happening in the back
Wow.
room at Max's. That would be the back room at Max's wasn't very big. So even if you weren't sitting at Andy's particular table, you were right on the other side of the booth from him or in the table next to him. So it was a very intimate setting back there. So I can't say that I sat between the two of them, but I was in the back room there with them, sometimes maybe right next to either one of them, or at Andy's table, but not often. No,
You
we
were
were all traveling then too.
right.
Traveling.
You were also close to Mick Ronson too, right?
Oh, I adored Mick Ronson. I just adored Mick Ronson. When I first met Bowie and Mick that first night at the country club, it was Mick I wanted to go to bed with. I was all over Mick, and I was so aggressive that I scared the pants off of Mick. I never did get to make love with Mick, but we loved each other. We loved each other in a wonderful, loving, friendly way.
What a genius.
Oh my God, I just adored Mick Ronson to pieces. And what an addition, more than an addition, what a partner he was for Bowie in Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane, all those Hunky Dory. What a partner, you know. It was like Mick and Keith, you know. It was like the two of them were. And, you know, I did the commercials and the videos for Slaughter on 10th Avenue. That was beautiful what Mick did, his Slaughter on 10th Avenue. And I think that maybe if Tony DeFries had kind of tried to mold Mick into a different kind of musician, it might have worked better for Mick. Like Mick would have been fabulous writing movie scores. Fabulous,
Wow.
like from Slaughter on 10th Avenue. And I think Mick was a little shy of being the out front guy. When they did a concert together in London, Mick's concert, not together, but when Mick was the front man with Woody and what's his name, the other Spider. I think Mick was more comfortable being the lead guitarist in front of and behind Bowie in a way. He wasn't. So had he been able to do, he hooked up with a friend of mine, Michael Kamen, years later, and they did a lot of work together, arranging and stuff. And Michael Kamen was that kind of musician. He did all kinds of movie soundtracks. And when a rock and roll group wanted to work with a symphony orchestra, they would call in Michael. And Mick had the smarts, the musical knowledge, education. He could have written all those violin parts and cello parts and everything too. So, but anyway, what will be. And poor Mick, you know, got sick early on.
Yeah. I had the great fortune of seeing the Hunter Ronson band, Ian Hunter and Mick Ronson, twice. Unbelievable.
And
Fantastic.
I just saw Ian a couple of years ago up in Connecticut or somewhere. He's still going. He's still fantastic.
Sure is.
You know, the thing about stage and stage lights, he's still got that hair. He's still got the glasses. He could be 30. You know, and he's what, 75 or something.
I think he might be older than that now.
I think he's older than I am. I'm going to be 80. Yeah, he's 82 or something. He's out there on tour. Bless his heart. I like Iggy. Iggy has given me the courage to wear sleeveless blouses this summer because I have crepey skin now. And I'm like, if Iggy can go out there with that crepey skin on stage and be photographed, my crepey skin, too bad. Thank you, Iggy. And thank you, Ian Hunter. Yeah.
In 1974, you started playing. I think the first band was Cherry Vanilla and her Staten Island band. Was it Miles Copeland that convinced you to move to the UK to pursue your career? Because I know you ended up with Sting and Stewart Copeland, but I think I might have read somewhere that Miles was the one that brought you to England.
Yeah, my first band was actually Patrick Henderson, who used to play the second piano in Leon Russell's band.
Oh.
And Patrick Henderson and Hilly Michaels and anyway, I forgot. But the first band, that was the first band. And then, you know, all I'd have to do is one gig and some rock star would come and steal my band, you know, or steal my bass player. Then I'd have to rent rehearsal space. We had no money, try to audition. Oh my God, it was endless. Try to get them to learn all the songs.
This was in New York still?
Yeah, get me used to singing with new musicians. They all sounded different when they, oh my God, that process. So the Staten Island band probably came as the second band. And Chasm Sultan was in it. And
from Todd Rundgren's partner.
Todd stole them from me. He played keyboards for me, Chasm. He played bass for Todd. So we're still friends. I still love them all. But so we were. This was even. You know, this was pretty much Staten Island band with one or two ringers in there. We were playing a little club downtown New York. And my bass player at the time was a real alky. He really drank a lot. And Miles Copeland came to see us, and he had just come over from, height of punk rock in London, 1976, And my bass player was so drunk, he fell off the stage during one of the songs. And Miles thought that was fabulous. That was punk. So he thought I was punk and perfect to bring over. And he knew I had a great keyboard player and a great guitarist. And he needed to get his brother and Sting gigs, and they had no hook to hook the police on. Who were the police? No, they hadn't done anything anybody would know about. And they had a guitarist named Henry Padovani. So Miles offered us a deal. We had to pay our own way to get there and every other thing, but that he would get us gigs if I would use Stewart and Sting and Henry as my opening act. So I got them their first gigs as my opening act. And then Stewart and Sting would play with Louis Lepore and Zeka Escabel, my keyboard player and guitarist, as my band. So that's how we first went on tour. And we carried an acoustic piano in a van, and they had to do all the roadie work too. And that piano was always out of tune, so they would tune to it. And I had a hard time keeping tune. And oh my God! But anyway, I look back now, and it was all romantic punk time. 109th at the Roxy, So that was okay. Yeah.
Did Miles help you get your deal with RCA Records in England?
No, he didn't. In fact, Miles had a hard time once I got with RCA, because in those days, Miles was using little distributors who could buy records and sell them to record stores, who only wanted to take 2 or 10 records because they didn't know if they were going to sell. This was all a new thing, this punk rock, these people from New York doing new wave punk rock. So RCA wouldn't sign any kind of deal where they would send a record store only a handful of albums. The record store had minimum order because RCA was big RCA. So Miles did try to help me selling the records there. But the reason I was with RCA was that when I worked for Bowie, and they first sent me over to London, because Bowie was actually signed with the US company. We had to do PR in London as well. They assigned me the lowest guy on the totem pole in the press office at RCA to come and greet me at the airport and take me to the hotel. Normally an A&R man or a head of PR or press would come and do that. I was like Bowie's PR rep from America and management company rep and all that. So they right away kind of showed me a little attitude. And after all, who was I? Some Warhol star was now going to tell them how to do PR, So I understand their resentment for me. But meanwhile, they sent this young guy, who was perfect because he was gay, he was young, he knew all about punk rock, he knew all about David Bowie, he was in love with him like from a distance, like all the Bowie fans were. And so that was Andrew Hoy. And so I went back to them and to DeFries and said, okay, we only deal with Andrew Hoy. So we made Andrew Hoy our man at RCA.
Nice.
So all these years later, that was 1972, 73. So all these years later, February 77, when I go over there, Andrew Hoy is now an A&R man at RCA.
Wow.
So he signed me. He was a friend. I had an offer from CBS, was a much better record company at the time, but I wanted Andrew, even though he had not really produced anybody, but I wanted him as a friend. And I wanted RCA because of Elvis, Bowie, the Kinks, the history.
Right.
So whatever. So that's all okay. Like I say, as the years go by, everything in the end turns out to be, you understand why it went that way. It's, becomes a blessing.
And I believe it was 1978, the punk Foxy Bitch from the Bad Girl album came out in 78, and you did like 3 records with RCA, 2 or 3?
2 albums and a couple of singles. Yeah. It was supposed to come out earlier, like September I don't know, it was supposed to come out September. When did Elvis die? It was supposed to come out just when Elvis died, and they pushed it back a few months. And then, because they had to go on press and press tons of Elvis and stuff.
And you were on TV in England, and you had a good run going for a little while out there.
Yeah. Andrew Hoy left RCA though, because
Ooh.
by my second album, we knew that they weren't going to spend any money on me. And I kind of just fulfilled the contract by doing that second album. And it wasn't a very commercial album. I had a hymn on it. I had a disco track on it without disco arrangement. And, you know, so Andrew was faced with a difficult choice in that Vangelis was also on RCA. And that's where I met Vangelis, when we were both recording artists on RCA. And Andrew was his A&R man too. And he was offered a much better deal at Hologram or Polydor. So he left and he took Andrew with him. And how could I object to that? Vangelis was a huge star. And, you know, so I no longer had an A&R man at RCA who cared about me. So,
I got to say right now, there's so many things to talk to you about. It's like, it's an amazing career, because we're going to talk about Vangelis, because I have a huge amount of respect for him, and I know you ended up working together. But I have to ask you a question first. Is it true that you were involved with Kris Kristofferson?
I had sex with him one night.
Okay, so that was it.
In the Chelsea Hotel, no less.
You had sex with Kris Kristofferson in the Chelsea Hotel. That's a pretty good thing to have on a resume, I'd say.
What a divine, sweet man. A divine, sweet man. I met him at a little club, a little coffee house in the Village. He wasn't a huge star yet. And I hung out with him. We went to the Kettle of Fish. And Bob Dylan was there.
I love that place.
Yeah, you know it?
Yeah.
Bob Dylan and Bobby Newirth were there. And I hung out with them till the bars closed. And then I went with him to the Chelsea Hotel. And for some reason, Patti Smith came with us. And Bobby Newirth. And eventually, as the night went on, Bobby Newirth left. And then Kristofferson at one point said to Patti, "Come on, I'll put you in a cab." And he took her downstairs, and I was left alone with Kris Kristofferson. And I got to sleep with him for the night and have sex with him. And he was so lovely a man. So lovely.
It's fantastic.
He was lovely. And then I hung out with him a few times, not in a sexual way, but we had dinner there a couple of times at that Spanish restaurant in the Chelsea. And he fancied my girlfriend, Nancy Andrews. So I saw him a lot because I was with her a lot. And yeah, oh, what a beautiful man, beautiful man.
Well, since you don't mind talking about these things, we're on the topic. Did you have any other encounters with any other rock stars or actors that we can talk about? Or, I mean, you got a pretty good track record here so far.
I mean, you know, Leon Russell, I hung out with a lot and had sex with once. And his band, especially Chuck Blackwell, the drummer, he was like a regular of mine. Whenever they came to town, he'd be the one I'd hang out with. And, you know, that Mad Dogs and Englishmen crowd, that was my favorite kind of crowd of musicians. And
was Jim Gordon scary?
What?
Was the drummer Jim Gordon, was he scary? He ended up murdering his mother.
You know, I thought he was adorable. I never had sex with him, but we made a date once and he stood me up. Maybe it's a good thing, huh?
I'm pretty happy to hear that, actually.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we might not be talking.
But he had an adorable sort of, I liked him. He had I didn't know him well. We just made this date and he didn't show up.
Played on a lot of great records, that's for sure.
Oh, incredible drummer, incredible. So, but yeah, and Burton Cummings of the Guess Who, he was like my first sort of rock star. You know, I used to see him a few times when he came to New York to play. And I mean, it was nice. It was nice for them if they followed that, and it was nice for us if you knew when they were coming to town, there'd be somebody cool to hang out with, and they knew they could trust me. I knew I could trust them. And
I love the Guess Who, by the way. They should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's a sin that
aren't
they're
they
not.
now? And Burton Cummings has a beautiful
Yeah.
voice. He has a beautiful voice. And people thought they were a little corny because they were Canadian, and you know, These Eyes were their songs were like, you know, not hard rock but beautiful. And you know, I love These Eyes.
Yeah.
American
Laughing.
American Woman was very hard rock.
Laughing was my favorite Guess Who song.
Which one?
Laughing. I should
yeah.
laugh, but I cry. I can't sing.
Yeah, Laughing. Yeah, and wait, there's another one.
Bus Rider, Share the Land. I'm a huge fan of the Guess Who.
Wait,
No Sugar Tonight.
No Sugar Tonight is
Yeah.
fabulous. No cream in my coffee. Yeah. Anyway, so you know, John Hammond Jr. was somebody I adored, a blues guitarist, you know. Had sex with him once. But no, it wasn't a huge number of guys.
It's quality that counts, not quantity, right?
Yeah, and it was nice to go back to the same ones, you know, because
Yeah.
you knew they were clean, they cared, they weren't gonna, you know, they were careful about their bodies, and you know, they were nice, and they treated you nice and gave you backstage passes and took you to dinner if you were lucky. Yeah, it was nice.
It sounds good. Around 1980, you started working with Vangelis, who I think you worked with for a long time, didn't you?
I met Vangelis in '77 at the RCA offices when we were both artists, and we became friends in '77. And I stayed friends with him all that time, close. We became very close friends because of Andrew Hoy, and just because of us, we liked each other. And I had a little romance with him along the way, short-lived, but then we went right back to being friends. And in 1995, I moved to LA, and I wasn't quite sure how I was going to survive. But I wanted to get out of New York and out of the cold weather. And I had an offer from a friend with a big, big house in Hollywood that I could come live there till I settled in. So I took him up on it, and I drove cross country. And Vangelis gave me the job of opening an LA office for him because he was about to sign with Sony America, and he kind of needed a US office. So in '97, it took till January '97 till I got a proper apartment, and I opened Europa, an office for him. And I still have it, but Vangelis left us, you know.
Yeah.
Which broke my heart. I mean, he was probably, you know, the kindest, most generous person I ever knew. He was just an amazing man, really amazing man. And I miss him most of all.
Wow.
Yeah, most of all. Maybe because it's more recent, but I really miss him. But I had wonderful times with him. And he brought me to Greece many times, first class all the way, you know. So I got to know Greece in the best possible way, because he was like a god to the Greek people. He was really famous and very charitable and very good guy. Yeah. And I loved it. I wish I had the energy to go back. I don't feel like traveling so far now, but I love Greece.
You also did some spoken word on the pros and cons of hitchhiking for Roger Waters.
You know, it's a funny thing about that. I saw Roger Waters. I don't know, when was he here? 9 months, 10 months ago or something. He was out here. And he was a sweetheart. Sent me an email and asked if I wanted to come to his show.
Wow.
I hadn't seen him since I since I did that, I saw him perform, but I hadn't talked to him or been with him. I thought, what a darling after all these years. So it was the most amazing show. And they weren't, the way they took care of me, oh my God, my friend and I, the best seats in the house, and an escort to our seats with his management girl. And she, you know, she said, there's no green room thing after, there's no backstage. There's a 15-minute intermission. He needs 5 minutes of it to change. And that's when you're going to be escorted into his dressing room and have 10 minutes with him. And that's it. So we were, and it was just my friend and I, escorted in. Roger, my friend, and me. He quickly had a bottle of delicious cold white wine, open, beautiful thin wine glasses, gave us a glass of wine, sat us down. It was fantastic. What did we talk about in the 10 minutes? Hearing aids, because I need them badly, and he has them. And so, because after all these years, we're talking about hearing aids. It was kind of really funny, you know, like Cheech and Chong in their elder years. Anyway, and then just as I was leaving, I said something to him.
Oh my God.
To this day, I don't know if I upset him. I got the feeling that I left him with this weird thought, because he looked at me strangely, and then they came in to say he had a change and we had to go. But when I did that thing, would you like a cup of coffee? Sure, cream and sugar, you know.
Yeah.
On Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, Michael came and produced that album, and I did it just like, you know, sweet like that, which is like a cup of coffee, you know, soft, sweet voice and all that. And Roger at the time wanted me to be more like a New York Haggard waitress, like, you know, would you like a cup of coffee? You know, okay, you know, cream and sugar, you know. And I didn't want to sound that way. So I remember like talking him into, I said, but no, you're talking about you're in Montana. And if you were in Montana and I was a waitress there and it was middle of the night, you're talking about, you come into this diner, I'd try to sound sweet to you. I could see you with this young, gorgeous man. So anyway, I talked him into letting me use that voice. So now, I don't know how many, a year or two goes by, and I go to see one of his concerts, and he's doing Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. And when the voice comes on over the loudspeakers in the stadium, it's my voice. Would you like a cup of coffee, cream and sugar? So then I went to see the show again, either on that tour or the next tour. And it was the Haggard voice. It was another voice, or mine had been altered. So I said this to him. And then when I left, I said to my friend, I hope I didn't just dream that and think it really happened, and he thinks I'm crazy or accusing him of something. And my friend said, well, you do that often. You think things you dream were real. I said, oh my God. So I don't know. So Roger, I didn't mean anything. It's just maybe I dreamt it. I don't know. But anyway, so that's the story of that little thing that you just brought up.
Wow. Well, I know you put out a book in 2010, Lick Me. That's how I became Cherry Vanilla. And I'm sorry to say I have not read the book. I know I've heard a lot about the book, and I'd like to get a copy and read it at some point.
Darling, you have my email. Send me your mailing address, and I'll send you an autographed copy with pleasure.
That would be awesome. But I want to ask you before we go here, what are you working on anything now, or are you done, or what about a movie about you? Well, I'd go to that.
Thank you. My friend Brian Rabin, who made that movie Freak Show with Bette Midler and stuff, he's been trying to sell one based on Lick Me, my book. But you know, these things in Hollywood, you hear people's stories that take 10 years to get this made, 15 years. So I'm confident that one of these days, and I might be gone when it happens, but one person will pop up and say, yeah, let's do it. And then it happens, you know, that's all you need. That one right person to say, let's do it, you know? So I'm confident that will happen. I hope it happens in my lifetime so I could be a part of it. but it'd probably be easier for everybody. You know, they like doing them after you're dead.
Yeah, they do.
No, you got that wrong. So I read so many things about me on the web that is totally untrue, you know. And so anyway, the other day I read one that I'm worth 1.5 million. Oh, really? That's news to me, baby. You know, oh my God, worth it. I don't even, I live in a rental apartment. You know? Anyway, so yeah, I think it'll get done at some point. But what am I doing? It's funny because I have tons of diaries that I keep all the time. This one, you know, sometimes I buy them in TJ Maxx or something, and they look. This one says, "Pray more, worry less," and it's diaries that, you know, I'm working on.
Wow, I love the way you write.
On the slant through
For
the
people
wall.
that are listening out there, you'll have to go watch the video because most of my listeners, they listen, they don't watch, but you got to go to YouTube and check this out. I love that. That was great. Can I see that one more time? It was really great. Wow. That's beautiful.
Thank you. So I've got tons of these diaries in storage and blah, 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 blah. When I wrote Lick Me, I had gone back through them, and I also had a lot of help from Tony Zanetta, who lived through a lot of the experiences with me and remembered some details that I didn't. And but then over the years, I got more and more like, you know, my brain hurts like a warehouse. After a while, you can't keep writing every detail, and you can't keep remembering things. So there's a lot of blanks in my life from just being on drugs a lot and all that, you know. And Be Here Now, I enjoyed the moments when they lasted, but I didn't try to preserve it so much. So I don't know about having the energy to do that. However, I did write a play when I first moved here in 2014. It's a one actor, and then COVID hit, and it kind of, I don't know, I might write a second act to that play one day, who knows. But I just wanted to see if I could do it and write dialogue. It turns out I'm pretty good with dialogue, but I'm not really a screenwriting. It's a real specialty, you know. It's a real specialty, and I might like you know, a really good screenwriter to, because I want people to really laugh in it and really cry in it, because I've had times that made me really cry. And I don't want it to be soft sell either. I've been a bitch at times in my life. If the moment, the only way to accomplish the moment was to do that. I punched my assistant in the face one time, my dear, dear friend Daisy, you know. So I want all of that to be in there. I don't want to be Miss Goody Two Shoes. So we'll see. But I have this freedom now that I am enjoying very, very much, in that I don't know how long I can last on my little savings. Not 1.5 million, believe me, on my savings and Social Security. But the rents go up every year, and food goes up every year, and medical insurance goes up, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I hope I can last, because I have the freedom of just writing what I feel like writing every day in these, without any pressure of trying to, how they're going to make money to pay the rent, or, you know. And I've left them all behind to Tim Burton, all the diaries, because he's become a dear friend of mine over many years. And he once told me, I said, you know, I hope that maybe some library or college or Andy Warhol Museum or something will take these for their archives when I die. And I hope somebody will, you know, edit them and everything. And Tim had told me back then, he goes, well, I have staff who could do that for you, who could edit them, and, you know, I could curate it and stuff. So I figured that would be my best chance of getting them in. So when I die, he gets them. What he'll do with them, I don't know. But in there, it's my freest writing ever, because I just write thoughts, poems, how I'm spending the day, just random stuff. I did ayahuasca for the first time last week. And I wrote about that in there, but I don't even want that to come out right now. It's very private in a way.
Right.
And so that's what I'm doing now. I write a little every day. I walk every day. I dance every day, and I cook every day. And I watch TV every day.
Sounds like a nice life.
Well, that's what I'm trying to have. I have to be very frugal and watch my pennies. And I have to do pretty much all my own cooking at home, but that's healthier anyway.
Yeah, it is.
And so once in a while, I'll go out to a restaurant or somebody takes me out or something. But mostly I know how to stretch a dollar, you know, and I have all the channels for the movies and stuff. So I don't go, like, I'd love to go. You know what I'd love to go to? Well, I'd love to go to Van Morrison any time of the year. He's my favorite, but he charges a lot for his concerts. I mean, ordinary tickets are $500, $600, $700.
Crazy.
I can't do that, but I'd love to go see U2 at the Sphere in Las Vegas. That's history. But talk about tickets, they're like $1,700 if you can get one.
Insane.
Yeah, but I'm going to wait. I'll go out there one day when there's a, you know, less expensive show. But I'd love to do that. And they're playing out there near my birthday too. I'd love to give it to myself as my 80th birthday present. But anyway.
Thank you so much for your brutal honesty. I love talking to you.
Don't forget to send me your address.
I will. I'm going to send you a piece of art too, because I do art, and I'm going to send you a painting.
I'm looking behind you all the while.
Yeah, I'm going to pull one of those right off the wall and mail it to you.
Oh, how fabulous. You darling. See, I have here's a little Tim Burton. And I have a couple of Tim Burtons over there. And
I see.
I have a big oil one in the kitchen. So you will be on my wall with Tim Burton, darling.
I'd be honored.
Yeah,
Cherry, thank you. Thank you so much, and have a great time out there in Palm Springs.
You too. Where'd you say you were?
I'm right outside of Boston.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, you got beautiful summer on the Cape coming up.
Yeah, definitely.
That's beautiful. Have a fabulous summer.
Thank you. You take care of yourself.
Many thanks. Many thanks.
Okay. Bye now.